Daniel, thanks very much for joining us. A lot of focus on alternatives, senior living, healthcare. I suppose, how do you see the healthcare markets at the moment? What's the outlook for 2022? And are you seeing more kind of institutional investor interest in the sector?
Well, healthcare, first of all, we've got the care homes sector, senior living, assisted living, and then you've got the acute care sector, which is smaller and with maybe higher yields. So basically, since 2015, we've seen volume of investment from institutionals in healthcare real estate double or triple in some countries. So that's of course because of the risk premium which healthcare had at the time, where you could buy it at 6%, and now there's been a yield compression. And today, let's say in France, you can access healthcare with prime healthcare with, let's say, a 4% yield. In Germany, rather 5%. So there's been a compression. So the outlook is it's going to be more and more popular among investors, because today they're in search of long leases, of decorrelation, and clearly healthcare assets fits that. But you have to notice that healthcare is very dependent on operators. It's an operated business, and therefore assessing the operating risk is absolutely crucial when investing in healthcare real estate. And it's also crucial to invest and to be a big part of the operators, let's say, turnout, because if not, you won't have any leverage. You won't have a balanced relation to your tenant, to your operator tenant. So to me, what's interesting in the healthcare is to access an operators market which is consolidating a lot. We've got some pan-European operators which are really growing right now, buying each other. The biggest are French, by the way, with Corian, Orpea, Elsan, Colisée, which are great European players. So typically the role of French funds and not only French, but fund managers should be to, let's say, to navigate the wave of this consolidation, and especially through sale-and-leaseback operations. They can be very profitable on both sides. So I believe healthcare real estate is still going to be popular among investors more and more. But what will be really a driver of the performance is the capacity to partnership with big pan-European operators. And at Primonial, we of course have that kind of access, being the biggest player in the European field for healthcare real estate.
And Daniel, just in terms of, for those who may not know, what markets are you active in, and I suppose what sectors in terms of the healthcare side?
So we very much into Germany, which is the one of the best places for healthcare real estate now, because you've got great solvency of the whole systems with real estate costs and social security, which is very powerful in Germany, and very long leases, typically 20 years for some real estate assets. So we're more into the segment of care homes. But we basically invest in every kind of format, because there's some cultural differences. Some countries you've got more mixed assets between very dependent people, very dependent patients, and people who just want a sense of community. That's more assisted living. In France, it's very separated, because between what we call EHPAD, which are very heavily dependent people who go there, and what we call the résidence senior, which are typical assisted living. So we have to account for these cultural differences. So we're very much into the German market. 2 billion euros of asset management in there in healthcare real estate. We're very much into the French market, and we have some opportunities in Italian and Spanish market, and we're even looking at more secondary countries which we believe are going to grow in the healthcare market in the future. Thinking about Poland, for example. It's a market which can only be tackled on a European scale, because the volume of investment in healthcare real estate is about 7 billion per year. to be compared to about 180 billion for offices. So clearly, it still is a niche market. It's an alternative. There's no doubt about that. So if you want to be a bit selective, you have to approach the market on a European scale.
Really interesting that we've been tracking the market quite a lot in terms of the senior living and healthcare one, and interesting to see that you're beginning also then to look at Poland and some of those secondary markets. Thanks very much for joining us, Daniel.
Thanks for having me.